At the end of episode 1, Obi-Wan Kenobi achieves the title of Jedi Knight, and in honor of his dead master Qui-Gon Jinn, he begins training Anakin Skywalker as his Padawan and in the ways of the Jedi. Next time we see Anakin is in episode 2, and he's about 10 years older. But what exactly happened between those two movies? We're still missing a lot of information, and we've gotten bits and pieces over time, such as from episode 2, when Anakin reminds Obi-Wan that he rescued him from a nest of Gundarks when he fell in. So here's what we know about this time period as of right now. Several years after beginning his studies at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, Anakin proved to be stronger in the Force than any child trained in generations, and was considered advanced for his age. Around this time, both Anakin and Obi-Wan began to question their roles in the destiny of the Force. Obi-Wan especially, believing Anakin was extraordinary in his potential, both with respect to his own abilities and in his ability to affect the balance of good and evil in the universe. And Kenobi felt he wasn't right for the role of Anakin's master, believing that he was failing him. And this feeling of failing Anakin only grew stronger as the boy grew up, and it became very obvious that he lacked patience and hated to wait for anything. Shortly after becoming a Padawan, Anakin would take an interest in the lightsaber, something that others would point out was a vast understatement. Anakin loved the lightsaber. And while we don't have a lot of information on his training with the lightsaber, we do know one time during lightsaber training around the age of 12, Anakin reprogrammed the training droid that he had been fighting to appear as a Sith that fought Obi-Wan on Naboo. Mace and Obi-Wan were a bit put off by this, with Obi-Wan stating that he thought Anakin asking questions about the Sith was just natural curiosity. He didn't think he would actually reprogram the droid. At the same time, Palpatine was watching with the two men, and he stated that a boy reprogramming a training droid is not only unexpected, but impressive. After altering its appearance, Anakin would quickly take care of the droid, but other Padawans who watched Anakin, a boy that came much later to their order and surpassed them in many areas, weren't too impressed with him. Right after he beat the training droid, two Padawans began to whisper about Anakin, stating that being good with the lightsaber didn't mean he'd make a good Jedi. The other chimed in that he was just a slave to his emotions, something the first boy agreed with, reiterating, he's just a slave. Slave is a bit of Anakin's trigger word, and after hearing the boys, Anakin used the Force to take their lightsabers, turn them on, and point them at the boys and ask them, "Tell me, what emotion are you feeling right now?" Though before the encounter could continue, Obi-Wan, the wet blanket, jumped down telling Anakin enough. Anakin then handed the boys back their lightsabers and apologized, stating they were right and he needed better control of his emotions. And emotions and connecting with others is something Anakin would struggle with for the rest of his training, and if we're being honest with each other, the rest of his life too. But because of these struggles with his own emotions and connecting with others, he would also have a lot of trouble with beast control. During one of these trainings between episode 1 and 2, Anakin failed to calm the beast and apologized to his master, saying, "I can't find a way to calm it. All I feel is its rage. It wants to get out, to crush, gore, kill." Obi-Wan would tell him that not all Force abilities come easily to everyone, and that Anakin was incredibly dedicated, and he knows someday he would master it. So Anakin at the age of 12 is having a hard time fitting in, he's not getting along with the other Padawans, he has terrible control of his emotions, and lacks patience. And going back to that training session where he reprogrammed the training droid to look like a Sith, this training session is important because this is when Palpatine first decided that he needed to get his claws in a little bit more into Anakin and finally found an opportunity. While watching the training session, Palpatine told Mace that young Skywalker's training was far from complete, something Mace agreed with and stated that Skywalker's training was complicated and that he came to them much later than they would have liked. Mace also talked about how Obi-Wan took an extremely difficult task when he accepted Anakin as his Padawan. Palpatine saw his in, and he told Mace that he felt a special connection to the boy because he helped with the Naboo blockade, and that he wanted to take the boy under his wing and help him along. And at first Mace told him, no, the Jedi are fine training him, we're gonna deal with this, it'll be fine. And Palpatine, not wanting to give up, said, well, he's training to be a Jedi. The Jedi are under the jurisdiction of the Senate. And as Chancellor... And so basically Mace was forced to tell Obi-Wan, hey, you gotta send Anakin to Palpatine's office because he wants to help him out a little bit. Despite Obi-Wan also protesting just like Mace did, Palpatine secured Anakin and took him on errands with him. Their first stop was on a subsurface level of Coruscant to a club. There he continued to worm his way into Anakin's brain and talked about how he envied Anakin and his life, which was decided forever at such a young age, and that he had no troubling choices to make under the control of the Jedi. While in the club, Palpatine also pointed out the corrupt senators in the club, and how they could buy and sell anything here, including lives. Again, Anakin's trigger words basically deal with anything involving slaves, and Palpatine knew exactly that. And then he ended up apologizing for bringing that up, knowing Anakin's past, and instead started talking about the corrupt senators in the club, and how one particularly bad one, he wished that the chance cubes would turn against him, because if he lost enough money while gambling, Palpatine could then take him down. After telling Anakin this, the very thing happened and the corrupt senator lost when the chance cubes weren't in his favor. Outside the club, Palpatine questioned if the Jedi could move objects through the Force, obviously playing dumb, and Anakin assured him that they could, and that he was very good at it. Better than any Padawans at his age, and most of the older ones too. Then the Chancellor asked if Anakin's abilities could move a chance cube, such as what happened with the senator in the club, but Anakin didn't answer. As they walked together, Palpatine smirked under his hood. And because Palpatine wasn't done with fucking with him for the day, he went back to his office with Anakin and told him, hey, I shouldn't have been doing this, I shouldn't have involved you in Senate affairs, don't tell anyone what we're doing, we gotta keep this between you and me, it's just such a shame that there's so much corruption in the Senate, I really can't do anything about it, it's so hard, and the Jedi, they can't do anything either, and I don't know what to do. I don't want to be a dictator. He also started inquiring a little bit more into Anakin's life and asked him if he was happy at the temple. And he also let him know that once his training was complete, he could always have a place at Palpatine's side because he could use a young man with such talents. And all of Palpatine's questioning on Anakin's happiness and referring to being a Jedi like being a slave warped Anakin at the young age of 12, and he finally met with Obi-Wan to tell him that he wanted to leave the Jedi Order. Something Obi-Wan wasn't thrilled about, as leaving at such a young age held significant consequences. And Anakin trying to leave began one of the most heartbreaking speeches from Anakin to date. He told Obi-Wan, "Do you know how I joined the Order? I've never forgotten. My mother asked Qui-Gon if he would take me away, if I would become a Jedi. He said yes, and that was all. My entire life, decided right then when I was 9 years old. Qui-Gon said Jedi training was difficult, that it would be a hard life. I saw a magic man with a sword made of light and a starship. I was a slave, on a world made of dust. What was I going to say? No? I know my training isn't complete. I have more to learn, and I know I could learn some of it from you and the other Jedi, but not all of it. I can feel the galaxy calling to me, Master. I need to answer. I don't want to wait. This doesn't have to be forever. I can always come back." Anakin then handed his lightsaber to Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan, realizing how serious he was about this, took the lightsaber and told him if he wanted to leave the Order, he could. Unfortunately, there's some problems with that, as Obi-Wan knew that leaving the Order at such a young age was a really bad idea. As well, he, along with his dead master, had sensed the currents around Anakin and knew that if the dark side got to him, it would cause a lot of problems. On top of that, because he made a promise to his dead master that he would train this boy, Obi-Wan knew that if Anakin left the Order, Obi-Wan would have to follow him and continue training him. But unfortunately, you can't stay in the Order and train non-Jedis in the way of the Force, which meant if Anakin left, Obi-Wan would have to leave the Order as well, and that was something that Obi-Wan was prepared to do if Anakin really felt that his place was elsewhere. After Obi-Wan consulted with Yoda on the matter, Yoda suggested one last mission to convince Anakin to stay in the Order. This last mission was on Carnelian 4, where a distress signal asking for Jedi help had been sent. On their way through the planet's atmosphere, dense debris around the planet caused Obi-Wan to crash the ship. On the planet, Anakin continued to struggle with what he believed are issues with the Order. He saw a war that destroyed the planet they were on, and questioned his master why the Republic allowed it to happen. Obi-Wan honestly answered that the world wasn't part of the Republic, and it had nothing the Senate needed. Due to the Jedi being under the jurisdiction of the Senate, and there being only 10,000 of the Jedi, there was nothing the Jedi could do. Anakin didn't understand this, and probed further, asking if this world and all its people were gone because that's just the system and the way it was. Obi-Wan acknowledged that he didn't like the system either, and it wasn't perfect. When Anakin expressed the system could change, his master stated, "One day, perhaps it will." Shortly after crashing on the planet, they realize that it's not as dead as they previously thought, and Obi-Wan gives Anakin his lightsaber back. And Anakin at first refuses and, said, "Hey, I was serious about this, I'm leaving the Order," and Obi-Wan told him, "Hey, that's great if you want to leave the Order, but to get off this planet alive, you're likely going to need your lightsaber." So Anakin ended up taking it. And here's the basic rundown of the rest of their mission on this planet. On the planet, there was a long-lasting war between the Open and Close, and when they crashed on the planet, Obi-Wan and Anakin encountered members from both groups and also native beasts that Anakin failed once again trying to control and instead had to kill them. Anakin eventually got kidnapped by one of the factions on the planet, believing his talents with machines could help them win the war. And even though Anakin was kidnapped by one of the factions, Obi-Wan didn't go after him. Instead, he trusted in Anakin's abilities enough for Anakin to find Obi-Wan while he continued searching for the distress signal. Finally finding its origins, Obi-Wan discovered a woman named Sarah sent the distress signal who had dedicated her life to collecting remnants of the old technology in hopes of inspiring the planet's youth and ending the conflict between the Open and Close. Unfortunately, the adults of the Open and Close both want her and the Jedi she summoned dead, so they can keep to their old path and war. This led to Anakin getting the youths to fight back. Anakin also flew on a machine he built himself and rescued his master from both the Open and Close, who were attempting to kill Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan then got Anakin to fix a communications unit and used a little white lie, and what he told Anakin was changing the system, something Anakin expressed a desire to do earlier to get the Republic to the planet. Lying about there being a high concentration of a certain gas on the planet, the Republic came to secure it and stop the fighting. Anakin was in awe that the fleet came out to secure the planet, and Obi-Wan explained to him that they didn't come out because Obi-Wan Kenobi told them to. They came out because a Jedi said so, and that Obi-Wan was stronger with the Order than he was ever alone. He then turned to Anakin and asked him, "There's a path before you. Are you going to walk it alone?" And Anakin responded, "No, Master. As a Jedi, if you'll show me the way." So while Palpatine's plan to get Anakin away from the Jedi Order didn't initially succeed, it did plant the seeds of doubt in Anakin's brain that would continue to grow and eat away at his confidence in staying with the Jedi Order. Finally, later at the age of 14, Anakin built his first lightsaber. After doing this, his master told him, "Anakin, this weapon is your life." And we know how great Anakin is at holding on to his lightsaber. So this was part 1 of what we know about Anakin's life between episode 1 and episode 2. A boy with more gifts and talents than his fellow Padawans, who excelled at lightsaber fighting and telekinesis, but had a bit of problem getting along with his fellow Padawans, patience, and controlling his emotions. So make sure you like the video and subscribe, and hopefully I will put out more What You Missed series in the future. Besides that, come back for more Star Wars videos, comic videos, Game of Thrones videos, and anything sci-fi fantasy related. He also started probing into Anakin a little bit. God damn it.